Um, anyways, cool. Let's get to our first caller. We're gonna get to okay, here it is. Mike, you are on with Martin and Ethan. How's it going?
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Ooh, it's a little
Hey.
quiet. Doing good. How about you?
Doing good. Doing good. Am I on with two people?
Yeah,
Yes,
you're on
sir.
with myself and Martin. And as I recall, you were an atheist, right? And now you're a Christian.
Yes.
Would you be open to talking about like what changed you, or was there something else you wanted to cover?
I can start there if that's where you want to start.
Yeah, I mean that would
Um,
I would love to hear. Are you able to by chance speak a little bit louder only because it's kind of quiet, or bring yourself closer to the mic?
can you hear me better now?
Is that better?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Because
Yep, we're
I
Thank
good.
you.
Perfect.
okay, all right, okay. So I got saved in April of 1998 on Easter weekend, and I was only 19. Um, I'm 43 this year in June. So I've been saved, for over half of my life.
Okay.
But in my teenage years, I was atheist from the time I was 13 years old, when I would go to church with my grandma and sit in those boring, dead church services and get nothing out of it. Um, it just had nothing ever spoke to me. Nothing ever connected with me. Nothing ever meant anything to me when I was a teenager when it came to God. I was just left to just come up with my own belief system because I was left to myself the majority of my teenage years.
Mike, can
And
I
I
ask you a
went through
can I
all
ask you a
the
brief
uses.
question?
Yeah.
What denomination was your grandmother, if you remember?
Okay, so that was the Church of the Nazarene, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
were the two
That's gonna
different
be
churches. Yeah.
yeah,
What's
that's
the
gonna be
church?
pretty dry.
What's the Church of Nazarene?
Yeah. Yes.
Or never mind.
It's more
Um,
orthodox. I don't think it's full orthodox, but Mike can tell you better than me, of course.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
the Nazarene Church. So the Nazarene Church was just basically about just hypocrites, people that gave lip service to God,
Okay.
and that was it. Um, they were very hypocritical, very judgmental, very condescending. They were holier than thou, better than you, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was a bad kid.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of felt like I deserved that kind of treatment. But after I got saved and I got really like personal with God, I realized that God loved me. God loves me no matter what condition I'm in.
Did
And
you
I
did you
learned
change
that
denominations,
quickly.
Mike?
Yes, I've actually been a part of many denominations, and I actually went to a Pentecostal Bible college.
Oh, wow.
Um, but I've kind of parted ways with the Pentecostal side of things too, even though that's what I was saved in, and that's what my belief systems are rooted in, is Pentecostal. But it turned me off as well. The more close I get to God, the more I get to know God for who God really is, not what we make him out to be or not to be. I realized something, that organized religion is really way off when it comes to showing us who God really is. Even though they read it right out of the Bible,
So,
um,
may I
I
ask?
don't think that they really represent.
Sorry, I'll let you finish. I had a follow up question for you.
I don't think that the way that the Bible is taught and preached today really represents what God is really trying to get across to us as humans today. Because there's still a lot of judgment in it. There's still a lot of hypocrisy in the people teaching it. There's still a lot of error in us. And we have to be willing, I think, to put aside our prejudices and our dogma and our judgments and our dislikes for certain kinds of people if we're really going to understand God.
All right, may I ask you
God is
a
who he
follow-up question?
Wait,
what?
As far as putting aside dogma goes, though, I don't know of any religion that doesn't have dogma.
Like when you say you were saved, may I ask what specifically happened that saved you? Like what changed your mind from saying, I don't believe a God exists to I now believe there is a God?
So I went to church for the first time in years on that Easter weekend because I was invited by somebody and I wanted him to leave me alone. And I told him, if I come to church with you, will leave me alone? And he says, yes, if you don't get anything out of it, if nothing happens, and it's just the same dry, boring thing, I'll never ask you again. I'm like, deal. So I got drunk, high, I got pasted before I went.
Okay. Wait,
and
you got
I sat in the back of the church.
you got wasted before you went to church?
Yes, okay. I got completely wasted before I walked into church, okay? Because that's what I was. I was alcoholic and drug addict, right? So I was completely pasted when I got there, and I sat in the back of the church. I was the last one in, and I'm going to be the first one out. That was my mentality.
Okay.
I had absolutely no interest in anything going on, okay? So they give this altar call because it's Easter, and they talk about the resurrection of Christ, and they have this play going on and this skit going on up there, and this man, acts like he's Christ. He gets nailed to the cross and whatever, and then he gets put in the tomb, and all the things that go with the story of Christ and him dying on the cross and resurrecting from the dead. And so at the end of all that, the pastor stood up and said, this is all I remember about this moment.
Okay.
He says, if anybody believes, that they need to be saved, we're going to open up the altar. And I've never been at a church that opened the altar up. I didn't know what that meant. So I'm sitting in the back of the church. I'm like, man, I need a cigarette. And I'm looking at my watch and like, I got a couple chicks waiting for me. Like, this is where my mind was. I'm just telling you where I was at in this moment.
Okay.
Drunk, high, getting ready to go home to two girls, and I need a cigarette. And I put my head down because I was just like, ready to go. So when I opened my eyes, I was standing at the altar. And next thing I know, the minister guy, he puts his hand on me and he said, son, the Lord carried you down here. And I was like, all of a sudden, God, Jesus, just came to me. Just like the Spirit, the Holy Spirit just fell on me in that moment. The first time in my life I ever heard God's voice. The first time in my life I ever experienced the presence of God. I was drunk. I was high. I was ready to go home to two girls, and I needed a cigarette. That's what I remember before.
So,
for the record, I don't think there's anything wrong with going home to two girls, two guys, five guys, two girls, and five guys. Like, as long as whatever makes people happy.
Is that a 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish analogy?
Well, as long as there is, a consent and they are over age, like, I don't care. So,
wait, can I just share an observation that I have real quick?
Sure.
So from my point of view, what I just heard is I had a different experience in church when I was on drugs than when I was sober.
See, and that's what everybody says to me.
Right, I don't want to reduce it too much, but that's just what that's a synopsis that I would give of what you said. I know it means something different to you, but that's just what I hear as an onlooker.
Yeah. So when that moment I was completely sober.
Well, that's not how you may have felt sober, but that's actually not how brain chemistry works. You can feel sober without being sober.
Well,
so are you saying like?
But this is my experience.
Okay, so you felt more
when God
aware.
touches your life, I became aware of God in that moment.
Okay, so
Okay?
let
I
me.
became aware of God.
So is this something? So for one, by the way, congratulations on your progress. I'm sorry for like your struggles, and it sounds like you were able to get past the addiction, which is great. And I absolutely do not want to undermine that at all.
Yeah, agreed.
But
I've been sober for 22 years, by the way.
dude,
Just so you all know that.
that
I
is
have not had
awesome.
a drink or a drug in 22 years.
Congratulations.
Okay? So let's put faith back where it goes. Yes. Okay?
So with that,
go on.
is it, and is there, for instance, I'm trying to think how to word this. It sounds like it was an emotion that brought you to God. So I guess what my question is, how do you know it was God intervening and not something just happening within your brain? That makes sense.
Because when I was in the church, I never once would ever say before that moment that Jesus Christ is Lord. Ever. And in that moment, when I was sitting at that altar and the Holy Spirit came to visit me, I said those words. First time in my life.
Were there other people saying those words around you?
No, I wasn't around Christians. I didn't put myself around people that believed in God because I was a drug addict.
No. I meant in the you said that you said the words in the church. At that moment, I'm talking about, not in your life, just at that moment, were there other people?
That's right. I can't recall I just recall what happened to me in that moment.
Okay. I mean, I would think that it's fair to assume that saying Jesus Christ is Lord is fairly common in a church, and that, you know, I'm sure somebody else near you said that. Whether or not you overheard them is a different thing, but you know, I'm just coming to it from my perspective as a former Christian, still former Christian, not, you know, turned Christian again.
So listen. So let me just say this. Nobody was telling me anything to say. It wasn't like that.
Okay.
When God came to me, I did it. It was I started to do it.
No, okay. To be clear, I wasn't suggesting that somebody compelled you to change your mind. You can only truly change your own mind. Well, I might want to walk that back a little bit. Your mind becomes changed as new information is introduced to it. But nobody can force you to change your mind without introducing compelling information. It's not like somebody can just tell you, you know, change your mind on this, and you can snap and be like, yes, okay, I changed my mind. Usually there's some information introduced and whatnot. But as far as telling somebody what to say, I've been to a bunch of different church services, and they all use call and response. You know, where the preacher says something and then everybody chants something back, or you all sing together. So they do literally tell you what to say, but that doesn't mean that they told you to change your mind. So just to be clear about that.
So if it wasn't for the actual presence of God, I wouldn't have felt, or it was God Himself that saved me.
Ooh, okay.
I didn't ask to be saved.
Let's talk about that. Like so. For me, I was a believer for the majority of my life. And once I realized I, for instance, was saying, well, I don't know what else all these things happening are, therefore it's God. And then for me, when I realized I was making that mistake, I stopped making it. And I basically look for evidence. So my question for you is, how do you know it was God?
Because from that day until this present day, I have fully believed in Jesus Christ. There's no doubt in my heart anymore as to who God is, to what God does for people. It's happened in my life.
Oh, I believe that
I'm a completely different person today.
Oh, I believe that you've changed, and I'm happy that at this point you feel like you're a better person and your life has improved. Absolutely. But what I'm wondering is, how do you specifically know it's God? Like, how did you
And
rule
I
out
tell
other
this to
causes?
everybody that asks me that. This is what I tell to everybody that asks me that question. If you want a specific answer from God, then you have to ask for it yourself. Your heart has to be seeking after that answer.
You're describing my late teens right now.
This specific, like, it was the presence of God.
Well, you were saying that. So Ethan asked you, how do you know, Mike? And then you said that we have to ask God. Well, we're asking you though. And I'm
telling you what I did is I started to ask God, like, okay, God, if this is really you.
Did you ask him out loud, or did you ask him in your head?
Yes.
And what did you hear?
To God, if you're really, and God said, if you're really ready for that, then you're going to have to change a few things in your life. And I said,
you heard that with your, did you hear that with your ears? Hey, Mike, I'm sorry, we're trying to have a back and forth, and with a little bit of a delay, it's tough, but we're trying to not have any person monologue. I'm just trying to get a baseline here. Did you hear it with your ears?
So I heard it in my heart.
You heard it in your heart. Okay.
Like you and me.
So it was an emotional experience. Is that what you're saying, or?
I had to put all emotions aside. I had to stop letting my emotions.
Well, wait, hold on. You just said that you heard it in your heart.
It does.
Okay, yeah. You just said that you heard it in your heart, but.
Right. You have to listen to your heart if you want to hear God.
So okay, your heart isn't analogous for your emotions, but you just said that you have to set emotions aside. So you heard them in your head, because your head is typically what people talk about when they think of non-emotion, like just fact. I just don't understand what the hearing him in your heart, but also no emotions means.
Okay, so there's three parts to the human makeup. You asked, like,
according to whom?
Then there's the heart, the spirit, and then there's the body.
I don't know what the spirit is.
Okay. So, like, that's kind of probably where we won't understand each other then.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I'm asking a clarifying question. As you know, you say there's three parts of the human condition. According to who? Like, who says that?
So.
Just according to you, or
opinions on the human. I mean, you can go and get an opinion anywhere that there is no spirit, and that the soul is one thing, the spirit is another thing, or there is.
I'm not looking for an opinion, though. I'm looking for reality.
So, what I learned was through, like, Watchman Nee. The book called The Spiritual Man was my first book that I read. And then I got into some psychology, trying to remember the guy's name. M. Scott Peck was a guy that I read up on. I did read a little bit of Doranism. I did read a little bit of, let me think of some other.
Well, real quick.
Salinger, I read some of his stuff.
Real quick, we're gonna, in just a moment, we'll have to wrap this up. But I guess what I was trying to ask is, like, how can we verify that God has saved you? Because for me, what I'm seeing is a man with incredible strength that was able to overcome, something really bad. I'm sorry, I trail so often. When my brother died, I begged God for, endlessly to reveal himself. And as I have on other traumatic events that have happened in my life, but I've always been open-minded, yet he hasn't reached out to me. So how can we verify that what you're speaking to is indeed God, and it's not just something that is taking place, like, in inside your head? Did I don't really like the wording of that. How do we verify it's God?
I mean, so it takes faith too, and it sounds like you have a major dilemma with faith.
Yes, because for me,
that you actually believe God exists. Yeah.
So to give you,
so
like,
that
for
there's
me,
there's that barrier.
Faith is the belief in something without evidence, because right now we have over 4,000 different religions, all of which say, well, you just have to have faith, and they're all using faith and coming to wildly different conclusions than you are. So for me, I don't find faith to be reliable.
Yeah, Mike, let me ask you something real quick. I'm not talking about religion. Like, think of something non-religion. It could even be something trivial. Think of a time when you thought you were right and then you were wrong. Can you think of a time like that? And again, it could be something trivial. It could be a math problem in calculus class or whatever.
Definitely. I mean, just when it comes to God.
No. I was talking about something that we can all agree on. Like, let's say you said the car was green, but it turns out the car was blue. Can you think of a time like that? Talking totally natural, nothing supernatural.
Nothing supernatural, just natural.
Yeah, just a time that you've been wrong about something. Any time in your life. Can you think of a time? This isn't a trick, I promise.
My first marriage, where I believed that woman was sent to me from God, and I spent so much of my energy in that. Okay.
So it's interesting how I asked you to come up with a scenario that didn't include God, but you still went to one that did. But we can work with it. So about that, it feels the same as when you're actually right, up until the moment you realize that you're wrong. And so when we look for evidence of something, we look for something that other people can verify usually, not like a feeling within your heart. So what I'm not trying to do is tell you that we don't think you believe. I'm very convinced that you believe in God and that you believe everything that you say. I'm sure that you do. But what I'm looking for is a good reason for me to believe.
Like song lyrics. Let's just go there. How many times have we listened to a song, got the lyrics wrong? Many.
Right. And you can swear by, like, oh yeah, those are the lyrics, and then you hear the song, and then you're like, oh shoot, I was wrong about the lyrics, but you felt right. Yeah, okay, I can work with that example. Yeah.
Yes. And you're convinced that the way that you hear the lyrics, revved up like a deuce in the song "Blinded by the Light" from Bruce Springsteen. And
Love it.
I thought that it was cut loose like a douche, right?
Yeah. Exactly. That's a perfect example, Mike. That's exactly what I was looking for. So you know how you feel like you're right and then you realize you're wrong? I'm afraid that that's what's happening with a lot of people who believe in God. And that's why I like having these conversations, so that if I'm wrong, I can find out what convinced them.
Well, I had to read the lyrics to find out what the truth was about the song.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing in reading the Bible. If I want to find out something about Jesus, I go there. If you
want to find out something about Harry Potter, but if you want to find out something about Harry Potter, you go read the Harry Potter book. That doesn't mean that what the song is about is true, though. It just means that those are what the lyrics are. As far as the truth value of the song, that has to be established by something else other than the song. Same thing with Harry Potter. You'd have to have somebody say, oh, I've seen Harry Potter in real life, not just, oh, there's a book that says these things. I mean, that's how I view the Bible. It's a song that lacks evidence. It's a Harry Potter book. It's a story.
So we do have to wrap up.
And I agree with you with okay.
Yeah, we do have to wrap up in a moment. So
I just want to say
Mike,
one thing about,
if I could give you, if is there anything you want to say in closing, like 30 seconds or less?
I think when it comes to our struggle in our conversation, it really comes down to you're trying to find some sort of like ironclad proof through a conversation, and that's not how you find it. Find it through your own experience.
But you should be able to share proofs with other people. I mean, if I experience gravity, I should be able to then go and show you and drop an apple off of a tree and have it hit you in the head, and then you can experience gravity. So, I just, I'm lacking the ability to see how a proof couldn't be shared with somebody else. Now, if there's a technical knowledge gap, I'm willing to bridge it, but I've already read the Bible, or at least I'm not going to say I read every single word, but believe me, I've read the entire New Testament multiple times and a good chunk of the Old. So I'm not sure what I'm missing.
Yeah,
It's faith.
I had faith.
Yeah,
I had faith up until I was giving a sermon to my church, and I've talked about this before on other YouTube videos. I was giving a sermon to my church. There was a crowd of about 35 people, I want to say. It was a smaller contemporary worship service, and I realized I don't believe what I'm saying anymore. And the reason I didn't believe was because I didn't see the things that were described as true, such as like, angels and I don't want to say angels and demons in our world, but like the forces of good and evil. I don't see the world that way anymore. I see people who make choices, and people make choices for good reasons and bad reasons, and that creates our reality. I don't think there's another supernatural layer that I'm somehow missing, because the way that I see reality, there's nothing that's really unaccounted.
Where does it come from, though? Where does good and evil come from?
No, that's what I'm saying is I don't think there is such a thing as good or evil. I mean, there are good things and evil things, but I don't think that there's an overarching force of good that, good things. I mean, you could have a good person do a bad thing, you can have a bad person do a good thing. Like, there's, I'm not going to say that it's arbitrary, because it's not arbitrary. It impacts our lives. But ultimately, how we make these judgments, we kind of do that as a collective society. It's less prescriptive as you're describing it.
Well, if a human can think of it, like, that's what I've understood about human behavior. If a human can come up with it, we're going to, be it good or be it bad. And we have to decide. This is what I've learned, is what side do I want to be on? The side of good or the side of evil?
Give me an example. Give me an example of something the side of good does.
So the side of good, feeding a homeless person, or taking your grandma.
Okay, that's a great example.
Yeah, I want to do both of those things. I'm with you on there. If that's your definition of good, I want to be that kind of good.
So with that though, like for instance, in my opinion, you don't need God to do good things. So to give you an example, when I was more right-leaning and Christian, I was extremely judgmental. I thought I knew what was best for people, and I was basing that on some of my religion and political beliefs. When I become an atheist and shortly after a humanist, I realized I shouldn't be the one deciding what's best for people. And I think it's best to let people decide what's best for them rather than judging them or putting them in this box of how they have to act. And I didn't need God for that. I was able to think about what was right and what was wrong. So I really hate to cut this off, but we do have
we could go all night.
Mike, I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I would actually like to talk to you again. So if it's okay, after the show, I'm gonna send you a follow-up message.
Yeah, and Mike, I just want to say also, I really appreciate you calling in and sharing your perspective. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm going to be hosting again on this show on April 27th. You're welcome to call back anytime, but if you want to call back and talk specifically about good and evil, I would love to do that.
Yes, that would be great. And Mike, again, congratulations on the 22 years. And
cheers.
Good work. Yeah, cheers, absolutely. Enjoy
you.
the rest of your day.
Thank you, fellas.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too.